Welcome to Story Glow, where every story teaches us English and life. Chapter 4: The Story Behind the Story. When we hear stories about people like Steve Jobs, it is easy to focus only on the final result. The iPhone, Apple, success, fame. But real life rarely feels that simple while we are living it. For Steve Jobs, there were years filled with confusion, failure, rejection, and uncertainty. There were moments when people doubted him, when his ideas seemed impossible, and when he lost things he had worked incredibly hard to build. And maybe that is why his story still feels meaningful today. Because deep inside, many of us understand that feeling. The feeling of being uncertain about the future. The feeling of trying very hard while nobody seems to notice. The feeling of wondering whether our efforts will ever become something more. Sometimes we imagine successful people as fearless, but perhaps courage is not the absence of fear. Perhaps courage is continuing anyway. Continuing after disappointment, continuing after failure, continuing even when the future feels unclear. Steve Jobs did not change the world overnight. His story was built slowly, through mistakes, through experiments, through unfinished ideas, through moments when everything seemed to fall apart. And maybe that is something important to remember, because we often become impatient with ourselves. We compare our unfinished lives to someone else's completed story. We think we should already know exactly who we are, where we're going, and what our future should look like. But life rarely unfolds that neatly. Sometimes the path only becomes visible after we keep walking. Steve Jobs once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." At the time, those dots probably looked meaningless. A curious child taking apart electronics, a young man building computers in a garage, a person losing the company he created, someone starting over again. Individually, those moments may have felt small, painful, or confusing, but together, they become part of a much bigger story. Maybe our lives are the same. Maybe some of the moments we're struggling through right now will someday make sense in ways we cannot yet understand. And maybe growth is not about becoming fearless or perfect. Maybe it is simply about staying curious, staying hopeful, and continuing to move forward, even slowly. Because sometimes the people who change their lives are not the ones who always succeed. They are the ones who refuse to stop creating new beginnings. And perhaps, somewhere inside us, there is still a small voice quietly asking us to keep going too. So, if you're still figuring things out, if your path doesn't feel clear yet, if you are somewhere between where you are and where you want to be, you are not behind. you are in the middle of your story, and that story is still being written. So keep going, because one day, when you look back, you may realize that even the confusing moments were leading you somewhere meaningful all along. I'll see you again next week. Good night.